people shot, 500 of whom are white guys getting killed. We're not seeing those videos. So we've seen, 12 videos of black guys getting killed, and this is what we're reacting to. Where are the videos of white guys being killed under circumstances that are just as egregious? And John McWhorter said, "Well, I don't think those exist. I don't think that's happening. I think those are very different cases." And people just produce the videos, and so then he clearly on the next podcast he just said, I was wrong, and he wrote an article in Time magazine saying, I thought these videos didn't exist, but you can see videos of white guys getting killed under circumstances that are just as insane as the ones we've seen advertised to us of black guys getting killed. And so there's a problem with police violence, obviously, and there's a problem with just the basic chaos of this is a point I made talking to Glenn on my podcast. People don't know how to get arrested. You have the problem where people resist arrest in a way that is raising the stakes and making it far more likely that they're going to get killed than they otherwise would. And so it's just as simple as not following police commands and not showing your hands. And there's all these videos of white guys, black guys, brown guys not showing their hands when the cops say, "Show me your hands, show me your hands, show me your hands." The guy's got his gun out. The guy's not showing his hands. His hands are behind his back. The hands are going into his hoodie. The hands are going into the glove box, and they get shot. And unless you understand the force continuum from the side,
what about ones where guys where they say, "Grab your license"?
Oh yeah,
but
that was
the
insane.
Guy's getting shot.
Oh yeah,
but grab it when a cop says, insane. "Grab your license."
Yeah, completely insane. Oh yeah, oh yeah. So you have cops who are so badly trained that they issue commands.
Those aren't the ones about the people not knowing how to be arrested. Those not. That's
no.
Main cases.
It's the full range. It's everything from this person that the cop is acting totally reasonably, and anyone, no matter what the color of their skin, was going to get shot in that circumstance, given how they behave. No.
He said the cop. He said the cop is acting unreasonably.
No.
No, that's not what he said.
No, that's what he just said.
Wait, let me finish the sentence.
Let him say it.
That is what he said, though. He said
no. I didn't. No, Hannibal's right.
That's not what he said.
I thought that's what he was saying.
Hannibal's right, but he's wrong because I got to finish the sentence.
I'm right about what he's saying.
You are right.
Well, I think you said the cop. If the cop is so unreasonable,
let's finish his sentence. Crying out loud.
Let's just dance.
Conversations.
Can we just dance?
Podcasting is dangerous. What I'm saying is that you can find the widest conceivable range of videos where on the one side you have cops who are obviously well trained, acting totally rationally in defense of their lives, plausibly perceiving a deadly threat, and they wind up killing someone who is either actually really a threat or behaving like one. And it's totally understandable.
Sure.
That's on one side. And the other side is you have completely sadistic, evil cops who belong in prison for the rest of their lives.
Sure.
And then you have everything in the middle, which is badly trained cops and just accidents and insanity.
But then you have situations where cops have, been totally restrained in situations with white people armed with loaded guns,
but the data
acting way more violently. And you've had situations where black people haven't had weapons at all.
Yeah, but you have the same,
and they've handled the situations with the white people in a way more restrained and civil manner.
That's true, but occasionally that happens with black people too. There's a great video of a guy who's a member of the NRA, and I believe he is, and he gets stopped in Arizona where they have an open carry law, and he tells the cop who pulls him over, he explains what kind of guns he has. The cop says, what kind of rounds are you using? They start having a gun conversation between two guys who are gun enthusiasts, and it ends. The guy checks his paperwork, everything's good. They shake hands, they go about their own way.
Sure.
It occasionally happens that way too. This is my take on it. I think there's too many people with too many interactions with too many people who have done crimes or made mistakes, and you're dealing with 300 million people of interactions. There's a lot of people in those interactions that should not be cops. They absolutely should have never gotten that job.
For one,
and if they act up, and they do something absolutely horrific, which we've all seen, it's good that we react to this. It's good that we take a stand. It's good that we make higher standards. It's good that we never let this happen again, or try to never let this happen again. But I think cops have an almost impossible job. Yeah. I think being a fucking police officer is insane. There's a great video online of a guy who's an anti-police force advocate, and he would do these protests about cops, and they took him on one of these training runs. He agreed to go on it, like explain, like this is the. Have you seen that?
Yeah,
it's amazing. So this guy, after just a couple interactions, realized like how. I mean, he's dealing with people that are just doing simulations. They're shooting blanks on the ground, which would have indicated he got shot.
This is like a black journalist, like a local news.
Exactly, exactly. And they take him to just a few of them, and he realizes somewhere in the middle of this, wow, what a crazy way to live. You're not talking about 1 hour-and-a-half session. Yeah. You're talking about 5 to 6 days a week, 8 hours plus a day, 10 years, 13 years, 14 years. How many people do you know that have died? How many people have you seen shot? How many bodies have you seen? How many dudes have you seen with their brains blown out? When is next? When's for you? When's your time? Who knows? And there's no fucking rational coaching for that shit. There's no way you can give someone some sort of a Zen mind approach for navigating their way through constant people who are doing things wrong, constant people who are shooting people, constant people who are stabbing people, constant fights, constant violence, constant theft, constant rape, domestic violence. You have to fucking be super careful. You go into a building, these two people are beating the fuck out of each other, might turn on you and kill you. Who the fuck wants that job? I mean, I'm not trying to stand up for cops, but I'm saying we as human beings should understand that this is an insane pursuit. Being the one person who is absolutely has no relationship whatsoever to the people that are involved in this conflict, stepping into this conflict and trying to mitigate it and navigate it, it's an insane proposition.
It's definitely insane, but there needs to be better training. And
it's not going to help. When the shit hits the fan, training
might help.
They need to be a certain caliber of person.
It would help, yeah.
I think training would help.
Yeah, you need to train. You need to require more higher caliber person. And
training in jiu-jitsu would help.
And just don't have somebody that just has a fucking...
I shouldn't say training wouldn't help. What I should say is it's a very small part of this gigantic problem that has to deal with human beings being constantly under mortal stress. The stress of danger and death.
But don't you think that there are some cops who are just bullies? They went into the job because they like the authority. They're little Nazis.
It's easy to be a cop. Yeah. It's actually easy if you want to become a cop. It's not that...
And the mortality rate of cops is not very high.
No. You mean... Well, the suicide rate's through the fucking roof. Sure. They kill themselves before anybody gets a chance to kill them. What was your question again?
But that's true of a lot of working class.
I was just saying it's easy. It's easy to be a cop.
It's easy to get the job.
Receive surprisingly little training.
But what's not easy is to do it right. I think it's insanely difficult. I don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. Could you imagine if you had to be the guy that's pulling people over, and you pull up to this guy, and he's got tinted windows, and he won't turn his music down, and you're like, oh, fuck. And you don't know what the hell's going to happen.
The music's bothering you that much?
No. I'm talking about tinted windows. You can't see him. I'm talking about tinted windows. What I said is you pull up to a guy, you pull him over, you tell him to turn his music off.
What's he pull him over for?
He's got tinted windows. Or I don't know. It doesn't matter.
What I'm saying is... Actually, it does matter.
I think whatever it too.
Let's say he's doing 65 in a 25. Okay?
65
Let's say he's doing something egregious. You pull him over. He's got his music blasting and his windows are rolled up.
He's not letting the windows down?
He won't let the windows roll down. You don't know what the fuck to do. This is a real scenario that cops face all the time. I'm not trying to. It could be a white guy. It could be a Russian guy. It could be an Asian guy. It doesn't matter. If you're a cop, it doesn't matter if you're black or if you're white. If you're a cop and you're trying to pull someone over and possibly wrestle freedom from them. This is a possible scenario.
Yes, you will.
Yes, you will. If you pull a guy over and he's got a warrant and you have to take him in, you are most likely possibly wrestling. This guy's reckless already. He's doing something spooky.
Forget about the warrant.
Okay.
Any encounter with a cop is a potentially deadly situation because there's a gun on the table, and if you act like an asshole and you start wrestling with the cop, if you say no, if your friend is getting arrested and you grab the cop and say, oh no, he's innocent, and you grab the cop's arm. The cop has to make a decision that you're not an MMA fighter who's going to take him down in an instant and pull his gun off his belt, right? So you've already put yourself in a situation where you're on a continuum toward lethal violence, and people don't understand that. And people think that so if you're walking down the street and a cop comes up and says, "Hey, let me see some identification," and the cop starts to arrest you, right? Now, you know you haven't done anything, right? So let's say you haven't done anything. You have no idea what call, you don't understand the situation you're in. You don't know what call just came over the radio. I mean, this is what I said in my conversation with Glenn Lowry. If I'm walking down the street and a cop comes up and wants to talk to me, I don't know he just hasn't gotten a call that someone who looks like Ben Stiller just robbed a bank, right? So I am
listening to this. Google Sam Harris images.
Like
go to image.
So I am never the best judge of whether I should be arrested. Even if I know I've done nothing, there's no way for me to prove that I'm innocent by not complying with cops' demands. So the time to complain about cops, about a bad cop, about a racist cop, is at the station with your lawyer.
Right.
Sue the police.
Right.
Sue the police on Thursday if you get arrested on Wednesday.
That sounds good. That sounds good as a white dude in his 40s.
No, it's more.
Sounds good.
It's way more important for a black dude.
On you.
Suey
Park the shit out of you.
It sounds good.
It's great for a black dude in his 20s.
But you never just been jogging. You never just been jogging in your neighborhood as a black dude that's 16, and then have a Chicago cop just stop you like, "What are you up to? We had a robbery suspect," and have him just grab your balls. You never had that situation happen.
Well,
you didn't have that happen in your teenager.
Have you had that happen, Hannibal?
Have you had that happen?
You can't be sure of that. I haven't been jogging as a black dude. That you're sure of.
As a teenager yourself, have you been jogging?
Let me just put two facts on the table.
Have you?
Yes. I have had
I used to be a black man.
I have had interactions with cops.
Black woman. Who's a black woman?
I've got two things I want to put in your head, and then I really want your reaction, Hannibal.
Sure.
I've had reactions with cops, several interactions with cops, where the cop was just a total asshole. And I'm absolutely sure that if I were black, I would have come away from that interaction thinking he was racist and he was an asshole because his being an asshole and his being a bully and his being totally unresponsive to my reasonable questions was an expression of his racism. But because I'm a white guy, I never had to think that, right? That's one thing I just want to put out there. There are a lot of asshole cops, and there are cops who, because of who they have to deal with, and because they know they don't know what a bad guy necessarily looks like, they have to be really tuned up inappropriately. So, like, it's a traffic stop, and I'm a white guy who I know I haven't done anything wrong, and I see the guy unlatch the restraint on his gun, on this holster, right? So it's like in his head, he's sort of stepping closer to, he's getting ready to possibly draw his weapon, right? Now, that's kind of alarming when you're just sitting there. Now, if I were a black guy, I'm sure I would perceive that as an expression of racism. But in my case, it obviously wasn't, right? So there's that. The other thing is that...
What was your question to me?
Well, so no, I mean, so I just put that out there. So I've dealt with cops who were assholes. Now I haven't been thrown on the pavement and arrested falsely, right?
You know, I think
never been fondled while jogging.
And not
you never
jogging,
been on exercise, just out exercising, and then as a teenager exercising for football practice.
The other fact I wanted to put in play for you is that black men are 6% of the population, right? They suffer 40% of they're 40% of the murder victims, right? So you're 6% of the population, 40% of the dead bodies from homicide are black men. But 50% of the people who are committing the homicides are black men, right? So when you get a call that someone was just shot in the parking lot, if it's a black body who got shot, and the other point is that the most homicides are intra-racial. So there's not a lot of white guys killing black guys. It's not a lot of black guys killing white guys, but more are killing white guys. But the chance that a black man was killed, if a black man is killed, the chance that he was killed by another black man is like 96%.
I'm talking about murders. I'm just talking about being a dude in the street.
Okay, but I'm just saying. So if you,
I'm just talking about being a teenager. I'm just talking about being a teenager out and about in the street.
I understand that, but
I'm not talking about murder calls. I've never been involved in a murder call. I'm just talking about being a guy out and about in the streets.
Okay,
I'm just talking about. I'm not talking about. I've never been involved in a murder. A murder conversation.
I'm not disputing that there are bad stops.
Out and about.
I'm not
in the street.
Okay, so
non-murders. You can bring your murder stats. Sure.
But the question is how much.
I'm talking about being in the streets.
But the question is how much interaction with cops would you expect given these stats?
I'm just talking about being out and about. And being
again, you don't know what call came over the radio, right? If you're if you're jogging in a black neighborhood as a black man, and the level of crime.
Yeah, what's time? Have you ever seen a murderer light jogging? Just like light, actively jogging.
I'm just saying that.
Has any murderer ever just been lightly
skateboard.
just jogging in jogging pants? Just a casual jog.
This is a good example of a conversation that I feel is going off the rails. So, but
I don't get I guess that's a good intellectual way to try to divert from the bullshit.
Because I'm not actually denying your point. I totally grant you that there are bad stops, right? No question. Right, and bad stop is a stop that you wish wouldn't have happened. Okay, but the reality is that the call to the call in response to a homicide is, when you're talking about a black victim, is 96%.
I've never been a part of a homicide call.
That's not.
That's what I'm talking about. Okay. I'm talking about my personal experiences.
I'm saying when the cops show up in a black neighborhood looking to respond to a crime, they are. It only makes sense for them to be looking for a black perpetrator of that crime, and 9 times out of 10, the call will say the suspect was black. Right, so who are they? So they drive into a neighborhood and they see some guy running. Now, I'm not saying that was your case, but there are thousands upon thousands of cases like that.
Yeah,
and it's you. So my question to you is, given that 50% of homicides are perpetrated by black men,
I see why you want security,
and 40% of victims are black men, what percentage of interactions with cops would you expect? It's going to be higher than 6%, which is the population of black men. And so what number would seem reasonable to you?
I'm not talking the stats.
Okay, but stats are the only way you can aggregate this behavior.
Yeah.
You can't show 6 videos and tell your personal story.
Hannibal, your personal story is obviously your personal story, and you're hearing all these other possibilities, and you're saying that doesn't relate to your personal story, and you think this is all biased. Is that what you're saying?
He's going into more homicides,
right?
And that.
But you're talking about general discrimination.
General discrimination. Right. We talk about the stop and frisk,
right,
in New York. We talk about those,
which is clearly racist.
Yeah,
and I mean, I don't think anybody argues that, right?
I'll argue that.
You argue that it's not clearly racist.
Well, we're talking about overall
profiling. I think
overall, and you go into traffic stops, general traffic stops. You talk about white suburbs. And black people driving through white suburbs and those type of stops. I'm talking about police behavior in those type of situations. You're bringing up. You just went to straight murder, which is
that's what I'm talking about.
That's an interesting angle. That's not what I was.
In his defense, though, what he's saying is that these cops have to be on edge because they're consistently dealing with murders. That's all it is. Like, they don't understand what exactly has happened. They're referring to.
Always
but he's talking.
Always dealing with murders. Sometimes they're just dealing with numbers.
Well, you're right.
You could substitute homicide
for any other set of crimes.
But hold on a second. Always meaning all the cops in the country at any given night when they come to the scene of a crime. They're constantly and consistently dealing with murders.
To a scene of a crime.
Come on, man. Hold on a second. Listen, I'm not. Listen, what I'm saying. I'm saying every city in the country, all cops constantly. If you're a cop and you hear that there is a shooting on West and 3rd or whatever the fuck the street is, you are terrified that you're going to go there, whether it's white or black. You're going to go there because people are killing people all over the world all the time. If you look at the numbers of homicide in the country every night, there's got to be 20, 30 people. You could be the wrong person. You could zig when you should have zagged. You could be that cop that responds to the scene of that crime, like the North Hollywood shootout, and there's fucking people with armored vests on, and they're gunning you down the street. It can happen. It has happened. It's not likely to happen. What I'm saying is it's not either or. What I'm saying is you're right. There's a lot of fucked up discrimination that shouldn't take place. But I think that being a cop is almost impossible. And I think that these guys are required to keep their shit together in a matter of life or death when their life or death is also on the line. That's a lot to require of someone on a daily basis. Plus, what you said, it's too easy to be a cop. You're right, but they didn't know, man. Hey, man, if you're 20, you don't know what the fuck you want to do.
It's not a fucking draft.
You're right.
It's not. They didn't choose.
Okay, but we want them. We want qualified people to choose that life.
Right, but I'm telling you.
So they make the qualifications better. And
very
make
few
it better
people
than fucking
I think very
40
few people,
college credit out.
I agree with you 100%, but I think that very few people are actually qualified to do it. And even if they are qualified to do it, I don't think they're qualified to do it for very long. I think I have friends that are cops, and the PTSD those guys suffer is fucking incurable, man. Those guys have seen their friends get shot. They've seen people get shot, and it's happened over 10, 20-year careers. Imagine if you sent a dude to Afghanistan. Obviously, this is exaggerating because it's not war on the streets, but it is a very diluted version of war. It's a diluted version of war.
It's actually not true. So if you do, I mean, now it's not true, but at peak crime in 1993, 94 in L.A. in the hood, right? And now we're talking the black community in Compton or South Central. The level of homicide was like 340 per 100,000, which is more than 100 times the kind of the normal level in a anywhere you would go in your life. It's the same rate of death as for soldiers in peak conflict during the war in Iraq. So it was quite literally a war zone. I mean, your chance of dying as a young black man from other young black men in gangs in L.A. in the 90s was just like someone who had deployed to Iraq at peak.
Right,
peak conflict.
But that's a long time ago. In 2016,
so now it's cut in half. But it's still terrible.
Very high.
Still terrible.
A slightly diluted version.
Because I'm interested in how we have conversations, and this is a fascinating conversation. I'm just interested in resolving what just happened between Sam and Hannibal. So there was a statistic that you were trying to cite, Sam, about essentially the overrepresentation of African American males as victims of homicide and as perpetrators of homicide. That then landed for you, Hannibal, as an excuse as to why cops are racist in some way?
No, it didn't land for me
or just as
These are separate problems. There's separate problems. Separate problems. Cops are fucked up and do fucked up and discriminatory in black communities, and there's still fucked up shit in the black community as far as black-on-black crime. And those are separate problems from each other. That's what I'm saying.
Sam, would you disagree with that?
There's black-on-black crime. That's a fucked up thing. And then as far as the police, that's another problem.
Well, there's just more to say than that. Yes, I agree with that, but there's more to say. So, for instance, what do you think? They're black cops, too, right? Now, black cops also shoot black suspects. They actually, I mean, the data, there's not a lot of data on this, but the data that exists suggests that black cops shoot black suspects.
I didn't say white cops. Okay. I said cops in general.
But what,
I didn't say anything about cops as race.
Sure. Okay, but how would you react?
That's actually a good point.
No.
It's not about. I said cops. I didn't say.
You got to kind of say that's a good point.
No. I never said.
I realize that. I realize
white police.
Once again, I'm fighting to get to the end of the sentence, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But that is a point. That's a good point.
No, but the point is there's an underlying claim of racism here, right? That cops are racist. I mean, that's what we've been talking about. And Okay, great. Okay. But I'm telling you, so then I'm asking you to.
A horrible history of police.
I'm asking you to
react.
Do you
follow anything in Chicago? Ask me to react to what?
To the fact, insofar as we understand this statistically, that black cops shoot black suspects more readily than white cops do. This has been studied.
It's a really recent statistic.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of anyway.
Probably because they conditioned and they want to react and be.
Want to be friends with
accepted
white men?
In a system where they are working right now.
It's
not a race thing. So it's cops, and I never said these white cops. I said the police.
Yeah, no, no.
So
I understand
if you want to spin it like that, then that's cool. And if you want to be do the smarty guy shit. And that's cool.
Wait. Okay.
I ain't falling for
this smarty guy shit. He kind of got you, Sam, on the black-white thing. Kind of got you.
We're talking about racism. I've been talking.
But he's just talking about cops. He really never said white cops.
Well, he didn't. But it was a safe assumption that
it's a safe assumption.
Given that you're talking about
smooth white.
Given that you said,
but hold on a second. If I was saying the same words, would it be a safe assumption that I'm talking about black people? Or white cops?
I lost. Oh yes, because I'm talking about white. I'm talking about the problem, the perception that cops are racist.
What's your motivation? What do you want to do? What's your solution? What's the solution? Because ain't no.
I don't think that's what he's proposing. What he's saying is just
the conversation?
He's just trying to enlighten us to the statistics.
I got a bunch of goals. I got a bunch of goals.
What's your solution? My near term arguing on the internet about it.
My near term goal is to try to figure out how to have this conversation. Right.
To have the conversation. The conversations don't help. This is why I don't do press, actually, and this is why I just ended up on this shit because I was doing a podcast earlier. I don't even know if this helps anything. It's just me and you arguing and talking about it.
It would help if we could actually, if you could understand me and I could understand you and we could converge on.
I understand you.
You actually don't.
I totally understand you.
You think you do. You think you do, but you don't.
No. Let me tell you. This is my understanding. You smart, you got stats, and you bullshit, and you want to you say the cops got this reasoning, and this is what happened in the black community, and the black community doing this, but the cops are trying to do that, and blah blah blah. But it's actually really fucked up in the black community, and blah blah blah. You this type of dude. You that type of dude.
You think that's how I perceive myself and what I'm talking about right now?
That's how I perceve you.
Okay, I know that's how you perceive me.
You probably have a heightened
Hannibal,
perception.
This is the problem. This is the problem.
Well, let's the only way we're going to work through this, and I think we really should, because I respect the fuck out of both of you. Yeah. Hannibal is a brilliant guy. He's one of the funniest comedians in the world, and I think you're a brilliant guy too. And I think there's a lot of heightened emotions, and there's a lot of you have very long and definitive, very detailed explanations of things that sometimes take circuitous routes. And I think he automatically interpreted some certain things about what you were saying, and it started this whole cascade of argument back and forth.
Okay.
So for what he has said, let's let you, just for a moment, express to him that what you're talking about essentially is just the sensitivity of a cop, and at any given time he has to be constantly on alert because he's worried about getting shot. Right? That's how I feel about it.
Don't put words in his mouth, Joe. I appreciate.
But that is what he said essentially about.
As the mother figure,
isn't that what he said? Isn't that what he said about the statistics?
There's a lot to say to get a complete picture of what's going on here. One is
it's a good point, though. I really did step my bounds.
Okay.
I feel like you're the protector. You're the protector angel.
I want these guys to work it out.
Because I want to work it out. I want to work it out.
And any other subject, you guys would have a great fucking time.
Yeah. Well, no, but that's what's so poisonous about this subject, right? Mm-hmm. Because this is the way I perceive it is we got emotionally hijacked, and we're actually not being responsive to what the other person is saying. Now. You
haven't experienced this shit, man.
Hannibal.
Okay, no.
But you're right. You're right.
You haven't had
no, but
people. You don't know people.
You're right.
You don't. Where are you from?
Okay, but that
your friends haven't been murdered, dog. Your friends haven't been. You talk about the violence in Chicago.
Let me tell you why that isn't responsive to what I'm saying.
Murdered.
Okay.
And so you just talk about it. You talk about stats and shit. You haven't felt this shit. You just talk about this shit. You try to intellectualize it and come in with stats. You haven't felt this shit. You just try to come in and you profit from it and whatever, and you get your podcast hits trying to be the smart guy talking about shit when you never really felt this shit.
So we really have gone into the ditch here, and
it's not a ditch.
It is a ditch.
It's not a ditch.
Well, okay, the ditch is you do not understand where I'm coming from at all.
You don't understand where I'm coming from.
I do. I believe. Here's a bet. Here's a bet. I could summarize your view of me in a way that you would agree with. You couldn't return the favor. You want to take that bet? I am absolutely sure I can articulate how you view your side of the conversation in a way that you would sign off on. I have absolutely no faith you could do the same for me. That's a problem. We're not successfully communicating.
Okay.
You don't understand what I'm trying to say to you.
Cool.
Okay, and so you're having a very strong reaction to words like stats. But all stats are are the complete picture of all the murders or all the assaults or all the arrests, right? And if you dig into the stats, then you get real warm bodies of people who have suffered, right?
You're a fucking human PowerPoint presentation.
No,
okay,
no.
Well, all right. So again, this is why this conversation is so radioactive, right? And this is again, I think I perceive you as treating me unfairly for reasons that I can understand, right? I can follow you down that rabbit hole and say, yeah, I haven't had friends who were murdered, okay, but that doesn't justify the way you're treating me now, but two, it doesn't require that you misunderstand what I'm trying to say, okay, which you are doing.
I didn't say what you're going to say. Let's not analyze why.
There's nothing about what I'm saying about crime or about cops or about stats that is meant to demean your experience or the experience of black people in the inner city, or to deny that I haven't shared that experience. That's absolutely true. Right? I would be. There's absolutely no hesitation in me to acknowledge that I have a very different experience being a white guy, walking down the street, jogging down the street, coming into the presence of cops. Right? Yes, that's all true. But there's a lot of data about what is happening in our society, and it's not the way you're summarizing it that cops are fucked up. And
it's not how I'm summarizing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is one of the things you said. That doesn't capture what's going on.
Some cops are fucked up.
Yes, and of course I'm going to agree with that, right? And some cops are fucked up. Some cops are good people who are badly trained, and some cops are fucking evil. So there's everything.
Problems.
These are separate problems. But
black violence is separate problems.
Can you guys hug this out?
Can we hug this out?
But I think this is where this is heading to a hug out.
But the problem is you are actually pissed off at me for something I actually didn't say. Right? I mean, you think I said it, but I didn't say it.
Okay.
I mean, so
go ahead.
You might be at the end of your patience, but I think we could actually get past this, and you could understand what I'm saying.
He's all alpha brained up.
Do you have anything from
Joe's
on it that could help?
Yeah.
So. Hannibal, do you feel like a lot of this whole conversation, not this specific conversation, the whole dialogue in America at the moment, do you think that it's fruitful around like Black Lives Matter and stuff, or do you feel like it's just disengaged from the lived reality of your experience?
What do you mean?
Because I think what Sam's trying to do is have a very data-driven...
Let Sam say what he's trying to do.
I'm trying to figure out what's actually
for each other.
So, because he was about to say something, he was about to say.
I'm trying to figure out what's actually going on in the world so that we can figure out how to respond to the worst problems and reduce the amount of suffering going on in the world. There are many problems. There are problems that we can talk about totally honestly, and no one gets hijacked emotionally. So if we're talking about cancer, right? Talking about leukemia, no one's going to say, fuck you, you haven't had my... I mean, it's just cancer is a problem, and we can understand it scientifically, we can look at the stats, and we can decide how to respond to it, right? Okay. And there are many problems. There are many problems like this, but when you're talking about police violence and the racial component of this...
Yeah, y'all could talk about it easily without me being here.
No,
I think actually it was quite the contrary.
We were planning.
I think quite the contrary. I think it's important that you hear.
You would talk about it differently if I was.
No. On the contrary,
you would talk about it
bullshit.
Completely.
Well, no. We
wait a minute, Joe. I got to respond to this. Joe. Hannibal. The reason why we're having a problem right now is because I'm not talking about it differently with you being here. I'm talking about it exactly the way I would with these two guys with you here, and that's why we're running into the ditch.
As a group, you wouldn't talk about it the same, and that's 100%.
Well, we wouldn't because you wouldn't be here. In his defense, he's arguing against it in a very vocal and powerful way, and you wouldn't do it and I wouldn't do it. You would accept it as a stat. He's saying it's not just a stat, it's people and it's people that I know. So in his defense, he's right in that we wouldn't be having the same sort of dialogue.
We would not have the lived experience in this room.
Or the conversation wouldn't be the same.
No, but if the suggestion is that we would be more dismissive of police violence against black people, that's not true.
I don't think that's true either, but I don't think it's either or. And I think he's right, and I think you're right as well. And I think that this is, like Sam was saying, this is a very emotionally charged conversation. You can't just talk about stats, because when you break it down to stats, someone like you gets incredibly offended because you've actually experienced the actual discrimination live in the flesh, and you've had your dick grabbed, and you know people that have gotten shot. And so it gets to this state where you're like, you can't just break it down the numbers, so you jump up. Am I right?
Sure. No. I mean, I don't buy that. Of course, you
can. I don't think you're wrong.
Of course, you can talk about stats. I mean, the only way to talk about 3,000 people who died in 9/11, say, is to talk about 3,000 people as a group.
I agree 100%.
No one who uses the number 3,000 thinks that they're disregarding the lived reality of each individual or all their grieving families. I mean, it's just not. There's nothing wrong with talking about stats.
Nothing wrong with it.
And in fact, it's the only way to capture the totality of what's going on. So if 1,000 people are getting killed by cops every year, or this last year, I think it's gone up in this last year, let's talk about those 1,000 people. That's that mini 9/11, right? With cops shooting people. Now, some of those people deserve to get shot because they were murderers who were trying to kill the cops. But some people are victims of terrible policing, right? Or sadistic cops. And we have to be able to talk about all of this. And the only way you can talk, I mean, you can talk about individual cases, and you can talk about the totality of all of the evidence. And all I'm trying to do is get a picture of everything that's going on.
I completely understand that.
What is your goal, though? Is it?
My goal is to move this kind of conversation forward in a way where I mean, just picture this. You and I are both friends of this guy, right? And we had this hard of a time. That, I mean, if it was just you and me as strangers, right?
How dare you? I felt bad right there.
If you and I were just strangers, it would be worse, right?
4 times.
I give you betting picks for the UFC, bro.
Thank you, man.
I don't do that to everybody.
That is good. That is cool.
Don't give me any
We're friends
to the UFC.
All right.
I call you a friend. How dare you?
All right.
I feel so diminished.
I'm saying this is the easiest. There are training wheels on this situation. I mean, this is the easiest possible way to have a hard conversation, and it's still fucking hard.
But isn't there?
I just well. Yeah.
Hannibal, would this have been easier? See, I'm trying to figure out what the missing jigsaw piece of the puzzle is here, and it's got to have something to do with empathy and feeling, even though those words are probably anathema to you, Sam. In terms of having to constantly qualify a reasoned argument.
All of this is based on empathy. I care about the problems in the world,
but that's not landing for him.
No, here's what happens a lot, and I have had it because I do a lot of interviews, and being from Chicago, and a lot of cats not as smart as you, but with the same sort of motivation sometimes. I'm from Chicago. I say I'm from Chicago. They're like, oh, it's a lot of murders there. Like they say it very lightly and shit. And it's not. It's just as a joke. It's not.
It's not light at all for me, man. I don't have to think about this stuff.
It's not a motivation to stop a problem. It's just a motivation to just talk about it or just have. It's just it's not real for them. It's just more of a thing. It's a talking point.
Dude, what's real for me is how politically toxic this is and where it's taking our society. I mean, I see the Trump phenomenon and the Black Lives Matter phenomenon. I see just the crack opening up in the pavement in our society, and it's scary, right? I'm not in Chicago with friends who have gotten murdered, but I am in the world where I see that people can't have honest conversations about the most important problems in our society, and we have assholes like Trump possibly getting elected as a result. And then we have Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is many things, but one thing it is the leftist version of Trump not honestly talking about reality. And I mean, to take one example from Twitter that is analogous to your thing you just showed.
Checking it. Before you say it, you checking to somebody's tweet? A stranger's tweet?
Well, this is a New York,
just like a whole.
This is a New York Times article that talked about tweets in response to Melania Trump plagiarizing Michelle Obama's. Maybe you saw this article. So Melania plagiarized Michelle Obama's speech, and one of the tweets the New York Times article talked about was from a woman of color. I don't actually think that she was black. I think she was like a Muslim. I think she was like an Arab American. But she said, of course, she stole from Michelle Obama because white women have been stealing the babies and the genius and the bodies of black women for centuries. Right now,
so a tweet that they post that New York Times.
It was a longer article about just how this was being perceived in the black community and the black.
So like one tweet that somebody said.
Yeah. Okay.
And you
but this is I'm responding. Okay, so I'm responding to this tweet.
To a tweet.
And the article.
You responded to a tweet from a stranger.
Let me just make the point.
And you about to.
I'm just
like a tweet from one of 7 billion people in the world.
Yeah, let him finish the thought.
Then you're going to
attack the point.
It's the perception. I'm not saying this is all of Black Lives Matter. I'm saying that some people are here. Some people are perceiving everything through the lens of race, and this person was seemingly honestly claiming that she thought Melania Trump thought she could steal from Michelle Obama's convention speech with impunity because she was a black woman. And of course, no one's going to care. You can just steal from a black woman whenever you want, right? Now, this is insane, right? I mean, it's not even, I mean, there's just no world in which that makes any sense, right? I mean,
but there were a lot of Michelle Obama in that speech, though.
No, it was plagiarism. It was terrible, right? Okay, I think Trump is dangerous, and I'm doing everything I can to make sure he doesn't get elected. I've done it on his podcast.
So you don't think she did the plagiarismeor you think she was a part of it?
She's definitely a plagiarist.
The claim was, more likely her speechwriter was the plagiarist, but I mean, more likely it was an honest mistake because it was a completely insane thing to plagiarize. There's no way you're going to get away with it.
Is it possible that it was done on purpose?
It was a completely stupid mistake.
You think it was an honest mistake? Wait, it went from
honest stupidity.
It went from an honest to a stupid mistake in 2 seconds.
She had a speechwriter who was not actually a professional speechwriter, just someone who was a Trump employee, and she cobbled the speech together. She told her this employee the things she likes, and she sent her parts of Michelle Obama's speech,
and she just wrote it down?
just cut and pasted it and put it in there, right?
It's possible that you can transcribe things and then you haven't properly annotated where they came from.
People are stupid. But what is insane to claim is that she thought, as a white woman, she thought she could get away with plagiarizing from a black woman, whereas she wouldn't have thought she could get away with plagiarizing from a white woman.
It's just straight up plagiarizing in general.
Yeah, plagiarism is bad, right? But I'm just saying that to perceive this moment through the lens of race is just profoundly unhelpful and clearly just untrue, right? I mean, Michelle Obama is one of the most beloved first ladies we've had, rightly so, and she's just as famous as she would have. I mean, as if she'd been white. I mean, the plagiarism is going to be found, and it's not going to work, right?
Right, but don't you think he's got a point though, in that he's saying that this is one crazy person that has one tweet, and they're making this big deal about it because the New York Times wants clicks. So if they have a story, and the story involves this one particular, I can give you many
other examples.
You probably could, but there's a lot of people. If there's 7 billion people, how many of them are going to make crazy tweets that you can defend?
No, but I'm just saying. I'm talking about perceiving the identity politics that you brought up before, right? What is
pointing at me?
What is? Yeah, sorry.
You got to call my name,
Josh. What is toxic about identity politics? It's this. It's just short circuits and honest analysis of what's going on. And you're just going to say that I, as a black man or as a black woman, am going to perceive this. Right. You perceive what you're saying as a white man or a white woman a certain way based on the color of our skin, and we're not actually going to talk about reality.
You could easily go to some white supremacist Twitter page and find some wacky shit that they write.
Of course, but
so it's like you could make this argument literally 7 billion times a day.
Yes, but that's what's so polarizing about this issue, right? That's a society. If we want to get to some kind of colorblind world where we can just talk about problems in the spirit in which we now can talk about something like Zika virus or cancer or an asteroid headed toward the Earth, right? And we can just talk about facts, and we can realize we're all on the same team, and that skin color is fucking meaningless, right? We want to get to that world.
Well,
how can we get there?
That's not how this country was built, man.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
Everybody gets cancer. Everybody gets Zika, but This world was not built on you get cancer and we don't get cancer.
We have something to overcome, but the question is how to move forward.
The discussion can't happen like that.
How should it happen?
I don't know how it happens, but
I mean, like you personally,
you can't ask for it to be on that same platform when that's not. It's a disease. You can't ask for a disease to be placed on the same level as something.
I'm just talking about
institutionalized.
How can we talk about problems in the world and honestly, so as to fix them?
I don't know.
Okay, well that's a starting point.
It's fucking weird.
But
Shit is weird.
But I think
I didn't get it. I went to the restaurant I was talking to you about in Vegas. The chick didn't. The first hostess was like, we got a 15-minute wait, and then we step away and we did back, and it was a server that saw me and knew me from the day before. And then she was like, "Oh, we'll get you seated."
But you perceive that as a racist slight? Because I'm saying that might be just
because there's some white people that I saw go in the line.
Okay, well that's more information.
Right in.
Yeah,
okay.
that's probably racist.
But I don't even know if that applied to that. But it's just a slight.
But if you hadn't said that I could perceive that the other way, which is the ordinary guy who's not famous has a 15-minute wait, and you're famous and you get in.
Yeah,
right?
But you didn't let me finish. It's fair because I've interrupted you lots.
No, I mean they're just different situations.
But Joe, I think your point is a good one. Like, what is the best way to have the conversation? That's the doozy.
Well, I think you have to make some concessions.
I mean,
I think that to avoid some of this emotional haranguing, that concessions need to be made before you discuss facts. And I think sometimes a guy like Sam, you're very mathematical.
Have to be
but I'm going to defend you here. You're very mathematical and articulate, and you're accurate in your assessments, and you're very studious, and you're a guy who doesn't discuss facts or statistics unless you're absolutely convinced about it, and you're not a man who is without compassion. It's just like you just want to discuss the facts of the case and then the broad spectrum, and you like to unpack things. You like to establish what the facts are and then unpack them, and then that got kind of derailed because there was a lot of emotions
on my own podcast, when I talked about this with Glenn Lowry on my podcast, knowing that this was dangerous territory, as a preamble, I basically did exactly what you would recommend that I did. I spent 5 minutes just talking about the evil of racism in our society, the history of slavery, acknowledging all this, and I'm totally prepared to say that we are still living under the shadow of slavery and Jim Crow. And I, as a white guy, have no first-person experience of this, right?
And you've said this time and time again.
I said that all up front. But Glenn Lowry, I mean, this is what's so refreshing about Glenn's take on this, and this is why I think people should just listen to his podcast, listen to my podcast with him. But certainly,
shameless plug.
But look at his.
It's a good
Glenn
plug.
show.
I will absolutely second that plug. It's a fantastic episode.
But what's great about him is that he's from Chicago. No, he's from Chicago. Yeah. But anyway, he's a black man in his late 60s. He's got 2 teenage boys. I mean, he's had to have the talk with his boys. He is as in that side, your side, Hannibal, as he can be, right? But his take on my doing that preamble was, well, I just think it is pathetic that you, based on the color of your skin, felt you had to say any of that in order to have a conversation with me about race and police violence. Right? Of course, you acknowledge that racism is a problem and that slavery was a horror show and that we're still living with the legacy of it. That doesn't have to be said, or at least it shouldn't have to be said, right? And I feel that the move you are making with me is you haven't had friends murdered, you're not from Chicago, you're not black, is not fair. It's not fair, and it's not productive.
Me and you didn't have the same discussion or the same type of setup, though.
No, I know, but
for you to equate.
It's just
but try to equate.
How many times does that speech have to be given in any given conversation?
I think the setup should be unnecessary, right? But I understand it's not.
It should be unnecessary. Oh.
Well. Anyway, you can listen to my podcast with Glenn and just see how he perceived it.
Probably won't.
Okay, I
listen to
no doubt.
I got his real estate podcast.
Listen,
anyway, listen to one of Sam's other 49 podcasts.
I recommend Glenn. That's all I can say.
49 podcasts. Maybe I'll listen.
I mean, the reason why we don't treat this like cancer and like Zika, because this is not just a problem of conversing about race in America, it's also a problem of conversing about Islam and terrorism, it's also a problem about conversing about all the things that you love conversing about, Sam, is because those issues touch on identity, those touch on tribes, on our conception of who we are as human beings, on our experience, on our lived experience.
And my feeling is that if your identity is not just Homo sapiens at this point, you have a problem, and it's a problem for the rest of us. And so we have to outgrow that problem. Now, it's totally understandable that people that identify with a smaller tribe, right? And they're Americans, or they're Republicans, or they're black, or they're Jewish, or whatever
Texans.
it is, right?
Australians.
But we have to. The end game for a global civilization has got to be that we take all of that more and more lightly. So that at a certain point, it's just we only do it for fun. It's just a game. Like I'm a Yankees fan, you're a Red Sox fan. We're going to pretend to hate each other, but we do it because it's fun. And if it's not just fun, it's fucking pathological.
You reckon it's never going to happen, Hannibal?
No. Oh, I don't know. I think it might not be in our time, but it's going to happen.
Not in our time.
It might not be, but it might be. There's some new things that are on the horizon in regards to the way we express each other.
300 years from now, maybe everybody be smooth and
dude, you might live 300
brown.
Years.
Well,
there's some crazy shit on the horizon, but the point being, like, there might be a way to communicate that's unforeseen, like the way we're doing now with texts and tweets and all the stuff, that we never expected before.
That's just making it worse.
No, I mean, I don't necessarily
know
if it is. I have a feeling that it's entirely possible that we understand each other way better than we do now.
I mean,
I'm not walking out decades.
Right?
You're not walking out? Thank you.
What the question is whether or not are we going?
Hannibal's gone. Let's talk shit about him.
Are we going?
Now I can really say what I think about police violence.
Hannibal just went to the toilet.
Cue NWA.
The question is: A, are we moving in the right direction or the wrong direction? And B, are the people who think that they're on the right side of history here, that they're fighting the good fight, actually on the right side of history, or are they contributing, as you say, Sam, to an increasing polarization? And as a foreigner here, I definitely noticed. I mean, like on my pod, we've spoken before about the word nigger, Joe, and the fact that I had to come to a conscious decision.
You had to wait till he left.
In this,
son of a bitch.
That is lucky that he happens to not be in the room.
White privilege in action.
But the fact that I had to make a conscious decision at some point that I wasn't going to use the phrase "the N-word" in the United States, because outside of the United States, one can discuss the existence of the word. I mean, of course, it's completely taboo, and as it should be, to ever use it against somebody. But you can discuss the existence of the word. And I think that...
So in Australia, people don't say the N-word, ever?
Wouldn't even know what you're talking about.
I do when I'm in town.
Interesting.
Sorry, couldn't help myself. We're all getting into black jokes by Hannibal's peeing.
But I think, whilst I'm not going to make the claim that a country like Australia is less racist than the United States, even though it didn't have Jim Crow
problem.
Absolutely, I'll own that. But
it's a pretty intense problem.
There is less, but I mean that we
stole their babies,
and spend a lot of time apologizing for it. We have Sorry Day, an official annual Sorry Day.
Probably take the whole fucking month off.
Hey, America hasn't apologized. Canada hasn't apologized to their native people. We should all
apologize.
But my point is, it is noticeable coming here that there is a more that the white liberal guilty form
more
of anti-racist racism is part of the problem.
Anti-racist racism?
Yeah. In other words, the day when Americans can freely talk about the word nigger without saying the N-word is not going to be a day in which America is more racist. It's going to be a day in which America is less racist. And this kind of constipated white terror about conversing about race is evidence of, I mean, is entangled with the problem of racism. In Australia, it's much more laid back. You're much less likely to get criticised for making a